Hello world, so in this session we are going to build a very simple video player. This video player, it will have the ability to seek, it will have the ability to also scrub, so you can simply scrub through it and stop at where you want to continue playing from. You can also pause the video and you can mute it. Okay, so the outcome of this simple tutorial will help you learn these specific concepts in Angular. Two-way data binding, what it is and actually how to use it, dependency injection. Like I use a very simple analogy for this, and also using Angular signals. What are they and how to use them in your project, and also something like simply looping through Angular because you will need a loop somewhere. And also this is not advanced, so I just called it basic 2. Think of it as additional knowledge that you may need in Angular, like selecting HTML elements, using template defined variables, and we'll see what they are, and lastly listening to events and reacting to them. Okay, all right. So starting off with two-way data binding, it's best to first understand how Angular actually works, how things are displayed, how things are styled. That is the basis here that you want to understand before you can actually know what two-way data binding is. All right. So here, I open these three files. These are the most basic building blocks of any Angular UI part. All right. So we don't have anything yet. We'll just build on top of these concepts as we continue. So right here, for example, the app component, the HTML file is what will be rendered on the browser and it's what will be displayed. All right, then it depends on data from app component. So now once you have fetched the data, it's already available and you have actually rendered it using the HTML. You now have the ability to style it using CSS. In our case, we'll be using a very special type of CSS preprocessor. It's called SCSS, and actually most people call it SAS. So it's what you'll be using, but you're not limited to use it. You can opt to use CSS. Okay, so those are the three main basic things that we have that actually make a very, very basic Angular UI component. For lack of a better term, let's just call it component. Okay, so what happens, let's just give this a run. So we say h1, and then this one will be a title, and then this title we want it to be to a data binding. So we paste it here, we save it, and then we see that it's actually updated in our browser. Okay, let me open this side by side like that. So we have it 1 2 3, and it's updated. So this is actually hard coded. Yeah, it's a hard coded value and it doesn't benefit as much. So that's where two-way data binding comes into the picture. Okay, so let me give you a very abstract example, something very simple that will actually echo down the line as we continue. So let me split this to the right, like that. So we have two views for the app component. So notice that the change that I make on either side, I make a change on this second screen, it's updated on the first one. I make a change here, it's updated also on the second one. So you notice one thing, the point I'm trying to bring across is the fact that two-way data binding is all about mirroring. Okay, a change made in the HTML will be reflected in the TypeScript data, and also a change made in the data will be reflected on the HTML. So I use this as an example, just to make you understand the point I'm trying to bring across of to a data binding and mirroring. So the basic idea is mirroring. A change made on the HTML is reflected on the data, and also a change made on the data is reflected on the HTML. So here, just use this example so that at least you can understand the fact of mirroring. So we clear everything here. I believe that makes a bit more sense on what two-way data binding is. So in a nutshell, two-way data binding is mirroring. When data changes on the TypeScript, it's updated on the HTML, and when it's also changed on the HTML, it can be updated on the data. Okay, so let's use a simple example that will actually make it easy for us to bring this point across practically. Okay. All right, so I will create a very simple input. Let's say we have an input, and this input field will update the title that we want to display. Okay, so let's create a title property right here, public title, and we give it a type string, and then let's say it's empty, it doesn't have any initial value, or we can actually give it an initial value, and I want to explain something there, like this initial title. Notice that we don't need to specify the type if we initialize a property to an initial value, okay? Because the type of the property will be inferred from the value. So in this case, like the title is string, okay? So if I remove this, you notice that it's also going to be string, okay? But if I change this to number, this will be updated to type number. I believe that's clear. So let's say these are initial title, okay, and then we just save this. And then right here, how are we going to display this initial title, the value initial title, in place of 1? Okay, so let's do that. All you need to do is to interpolate. And what interpolation means is that you are actually going to render the value that is here, like in the app component TypeScript in the HTML. And to do that, you simply do this, a bracket enclosing another, like two curly brackets enclosing another inside them. Like this, and then inside it you just paste the value that you copied, and then you notice when we save, initial title is displayed here. Okay, so that's just like interpolation, and the same applies to even numbers, to even like maybe objects. You can work with objects, and then you can use like the dot notation to get properties of the object. Okay, but that is out of the scope. So let's continue with what we want to implement. So let's say right here, for example, we want the user to have the ability to update the title manually. We don't want to always display initial title. So let's add an input field for that. All right, so this is our input field. So when we make a change in this input field, we want to update the title, okay? So let's save this. We see an empty input field. So how are we going to do that? How does this input field help us into a data binding? Where does the mirroring take place, okay? All we need to do is simply this. You add two brackets, okay? And then inside them, you add parentheses. Then you add ng model, okay? Then you bind these, like I'm saying bind is like you're assigning, but ideally it's binding. So you bind it to the property that you want to work with. In this case is the title, okay? Then we save it. Unfortunately, we get an error. So what this means is that this thing that we want to use in our scope, okay, it's not yet like initialized in the scope. And remember, you see the app component is the entry point of this component that we are working with, the UI, and that's why we have it right here. So when you want to add additional features, so to speak, in this scope, all we need to do is to add them in the imports. And for this case, we need to simply add forms module, and then it's still not like detected by the editor, so we just need to import it. Angular forms, okay? So forms module, so is this one, like that. So we save it and we see the error goes. So that's how you work with Angular. So if you need to add additional modules and things like those, you add them in the imports, and the imports is something new, like it was introduced to the standalone components, okay? All right, so now when we look now at our input, we see that it has taken the value of title. Okay, that is good. They have mirrored one another. Okay, so if we make a change now, right here, updated, you see that it's going to be updated also on the H1. Okay, and that's just it. So as you see, like the mirroring has happened. A change in the input affects the data, which is the title right here, and then it's going to be presented also. Okay, so now if we want to, for example, use this value, like the one that is that has been updated, how are we going to do it? So let's do something interesting. So we just add a button right here, and then this button, maybe we call it, we give it a submit label, and then we are going to bind it to a click event. So when it's clicked, we need to call a method in our app component. This method, we say maybe submit title. Okay, all we need to do is to console log, so that we can understand like the whole flow, how the value, as we said, how the data is going to be changed from the HTML by the user. Okay, so all you need to do is to do this, maybe title, and then you just say this dot title. Okay, you can have any value here, but it's just, you can even give it like that. It's just for like login purposes. So we save this, and then we copy this, and then we bind it. Okay, and remember, when you are binding events that are, for example, are clickable, all you need to call, like you need to make sure that you call. So when we do this, and then we inspect our console, if we come here and we submit, we see initial title is what is there. But but then let's change it. Updated, and then we now submit. We see the value in the data is the new one. So this is what you can now send to your backend. Okay. All right. That's the first part of this tutorial. It will be a tutorial of short mini series, and along the way we will be like breaking them down so that you can understand the very different concepts that come with Angular. So the first one, and this is very important and you'll use it in so many places, is to data binding is done. So the next important thing we are going to take a look at is dependency injection. This is really important. So stay tuned for the next session. That which you have learned about data binding, make sure you teach a friend or two so that you can grow together. And with that, have a nice day.